Welcome to Rebel City Podcast. Well, this week I'm mortally ill, in bed with the flu. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but it's a good opportunity to sit down and put a podcast together. I've definitely got plenty of time to be doing that. This week's guest is Katy Johnston. Katy is a presenter at Capital Scotland and an endo warrior, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get her on the podcast was to talk about endometriosis, which is, I'll let Katy explain it in her own words in the podcast. But basically, I wanted to do this to try and break down the taboo and end the silence around this, what sounds like horrific disorder that appears, and also break down stigma around female personal hygiene and periods, which I'll be honest, I find ridiculous. But anyway, loads about that in the episode. I talked to Katy about going to university and being sick, having to deal with the pressures of that and how that really affects your mental health. We also talk about how podcasting for, I don't know, maybe a year ago, it seemed like was really going to break down the mainstream media, but how the mainstream have managed to sort of infiltrate the platform, and maybe a couple other subjects that we broached. But a really nice conversation, and really good to hear a positive story about how somebody overcomes illness and manages to get like their sort of dream job. It's amazing to see Katy presenting in Capital Scotland. But without more of me waffling on with my flu, here's Katy.
I made a promise to whom will not to you, so stop the party.
It's just surreal.
Anyway, welcome to Rebel City, Katy.
Thank you.
It's nice to finally meet you.
I know, I'm so pleased.
I invited you on the show, about 6 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we've had politicians and all sorts, so
You've been busy.
Yeah, we've been busy.
We like to keep busy, aye.
It's been good. But do you want to just introduce yourself to people? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Okay, I'm like still searching who am I. So I'm Katy, and I am a radio presenter and also a campaigner for endometriosis, which is a condition that I have. Mm-hmm. And I've been through the ringer the last wee while, but thankfully on a better keel now, so it's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm. So what is endometriosis? Say that like
Very good.
Endometriosis?
Endometriosis. I know, it's a nightmare. It's like, it doesn't work for the slogans or the t-shirts and things.
Sounds like something
you need an abbreviation, aye.
Yeah.
I was thinking like meteors when I read it.
I'm just going to go with your condition. I'm going to go, what is it like living with your condition? Like,
people say endo, which is easier, I suppose. But yeah, I'd never heard of it before I got diagnosed with it. So basically what it is it's gruesome. Well, it's not gruesome, but we're trying to normalise it. But it's when basically every time you have a period, like the lining of the womb sheds, but it stays trapped kind of inside and forms cysts and really angry clots and like just basically a sticky mess inside your body. And every time you ovulate, this happens. If you've got it, 1 in 10 women do have it, which is a crazy figure.
Yeah, considering that neither of you who had the condition or nobody's really. I mean, when I searched the hashtag on Twitter, it didn't really come up with a lot. I mean, for something that affects 1 in 10 women, you would expect it to be something that a lot of people are speaking about, but it's just seems to be the case. It
is one of those things though, now you'll probably see it and you'll probably be like, oh, that's what that bizarre thing is that she was talking about. But totally, it's so, people don't even know that they have it. I mean, it takes about 7.5 years to get a diagnosis for a start. That's the average time in the UK. Wow. Yeah, so you can be experiencing symptoms for years and years and years, and really just, I think it's because it's about periods, and women don't want to talk about it. They feel uncomfortable about the whole thing. You kind of think, oh, well, yeah, okay, so I've got it bad, but I've just better just get through it. Everyone else gets through it. Who am I to take a day off work when so and so in the office is absolutely fine when she has her period, you know? So you do kind of just think, what makes me so special? Just get on with it. So I did that for years and years and years, and obviously then got to a point where I couldn't walk. So that's what happened. And I think that hopefully we start to raise a little bit of awareness and people don't have to go through that. But,
saying that like women don't want to talk about it kind of goes against the sort of stereotype that men don't talk, women talk about everything, and women are so open and honest. But when it comes to something that's like stigmatized, like periods, because I think it's weird that is something that's still stigmatized. Like, I know. It's a natural thing that goes on. Like, I don't really get it. Why do you think it is? Why do you? What?
I don't.
Such a sort of taboo subject.
I don't know, because you're right. Like, if everybody's going through it, it's completely natural. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, we all know it's happening, but people still like shoving tampons up their jumpers when they go to the bathroom and like being really secretive about the whole thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I think that it is just that thing where it's like, I should be able to take this in my stride. It shouldn't be, and we just think that we should be able to do everything in spite of it. So like all these adverts, these ridiculous, like, have you seen these awful like Always adverts? It's like, I can play tennis, I can ride a horse, and you're like, I can't move. And it's, you know, it's awful. And I think that all kind of perpetuates this thing. So basically with me, I had really bad pain, and latterly throughout university, like, I would rarely have a period where I wouldn't wake up in A&E towards the end because I would be in so much pain that I just couldn't function. Definitely be in my bed for a good 3 or 4 days when I had pain, and I mean like sweating buckets. I thought I was dying, which sounds really ridiculous, but that's what I felt like. And that kept happening. And then as soon as it's done, it's like some rare form of like post-traumatic stress. You just go, all right, got through it. Let's never think about it again. Let's never talk about it. And then in my final year of university, I gained like 2.5 stone, and was working in a cafe, and my mum was like, stop eating the pastries. Like, you're piling it on, what's going on? I was like, oh, you know, classic mum chat. Like, thanks, Jane. You've really helped my confidence. But I knew something was up. And then within the space of like 3 months, I lost all of the weight and then some, like almost 3 stone, because I was like vomiting chronically, like vomiting so much every day. I was in a lot of pain, but it's that bizarre thing where you're like, I'm feeling good because I'm looking more like myself, and it's that. And then you get past that level where you're like, no, Katy, like you are, like,
something's not right here.
Yeah, you're green. So went to the doctor, months and months of scans, got to the stage where I didn't leave the house for like 3 months because I couldn't really walk. And my bowel had this is so much information. I'm sorry, guys. I'm like, here. My bowel had fused to my uterus, which was obviously causing a lot of pain every time. I'm just adding all the taboos in there: periods, poo. Yeah. Like, what else do you want? Like, but yeah. So my bowel was fused to my uterus, and my right fallopian tube had expanded to the same size as my womb. So, and I had like 5 cysts on my ovaries. So it was really, really bleak. Yeah. So I went in and I remember the gynecologist telling me all this, and she was like, so we're going to have to operate, obviously. And I was just so desperate for them to get to the bottom of it, because I was thinking, thank goodness, at least you're acknowledging this isn't in my head, because for years I just thought I was like weak because I couldn't cope with it. Yeah. But
especially
actually,
when you're getting hit with like, sort of like you're saying, that idea that you just get the right pad and then you can go on the bike ride.
Exactly.
You can completely. The only symptom of periods that any sort of, I mean, growing up as a guy, the only symptom of periods that I really knew about was the blood.
Right. Okay.
Like when you find out that people, I mean, I've had girlfriends and friends that have been like doubled over in pain, and it's almost like, why it is that thing where you're like, how come it's not like this for everybody? You know what I mean? It should be just this. We think it should just be this blanket thing that just the exact same for you as it is for her, and why are you like finding it worse type of thing? So it must be something quite, like you're saying, like just goes through your head. Like you think, am I crazy here? Like, is it?
And you just think, oh, I must be like such a drama queen. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know whether it's a women's issue, possibly, but we do that thing where like everyone does this thing where they kind of berate themselves and they think, no, like it's obviously you that's the issue, not the fact that from a young age you probably should be told if you're in that much pain, go to the doctor.
Seek help, yeah, absolutely.
If you were bleeding any other way and you were in that much pain, you'd be straight to A&E. But we were going, oh no, hun, just get on with it.
This is one of the things that I came across recently. I think it was in one of the episodes of sort of John Oliver, and he was talking about bias in the sort of medical professions when it comes to like women and women's issues. And I can't remember the figures, it was a couple of weeks ago, but there was really sort of compelling evidence that women, particularly on issues like their periods and, you know, these types of things, their reproductive systems. Like,
menopause and things like that as well, I think.
They get treated to be almost a level of like skepticism, like the old school hysteria, you know, kind of like plays in doctors' minds. And I think that's an incredible thing so far down the line. So is that where do you think that contributes to like the 7.5 years? Because I think the experience you're describing to me as a notion of like troubleshooting, because you know that's what I kind of do is. Yeah. Like, how many things could that possibly be? Why would it take 7 years when you've got so really extreme and specific symptoms? Like, that doesn't. You know, how many other things could it realistically have been to take that long to actually diagnose?
You'd think that you'd go through a checklist, wouldn't you? And it's like if someone's presenting with like chronic pelvic pain, heavy bleeding, you know, all these things, you're so right. They should just go, that could be endometriosis. Let's get you in for a scan. It should be as easy as that. It really should. When I first went to the doctor about it, I was like 16, and it was, we'll put you on the pill, we'll change this. And I think because you can mess about with contraception to a certain extent, and it does work for some girls, and that might be all it is. Then again, it's the trial and error approach that kind of goes nowhere, because you assume, you go, I don't want to go back. I don't want to make a fuss. Like, it's fine. I'll just keep popping over the counter paracetamol and it'll be all right. And obviously now I know when morphine didn't cut it, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, exactly. So I can't even really give you an answer for that one, because it blows my mind. With endo, one of the only things that they can really do to help, and actually, weirdly, one of the things that they can do to diagnose it is surgery. So sometimes it doesn't even show up on imaging at all. So for a lot of women, the first step to getting a diagnosis is going under the knife.
That's really invasive.
Yeah, and if you get yourself in the headspace of not wanting to, feeling like you're already being ridiculous when someone says, all right then, you think you've got this, right, let's cut you open then, let's take you into an operation, it's going to put a lot of people off. Yeah. And they'll go, oh right, no, I don't want to cause any, like, no, it's fine, you know. And also the ordeal of having an operation. I was in a way lucky enough that it did show up on a scan, so I knew what I was kind of going in for, and I kind of had that vindication that, okay, you're not losing it, this is legit. Before I went in. But otherwise, you're in a position where you're really having to advocate for yourself and say, I really know in my gut that something's wrong with me, and you have to, the onus is on you to pursue that. And I think that that's something that anyone would be, struggle with, because it's that way. Yeah. I'm sorry, doctor, you really are going to have to listen to me because I know my own body. And I think that now, one thing I've learned is that I'll do that from now on. Yeah,
but absolutely.
It's a lot of growing up to get to that point where you're like...
I think that's something that came a lot later in life, but not a lot later in life, like my late 20s.
No, we've spoken about it in another episode, from that guy's perspective, haven't we?
If I feel that something's wrong, I'm going straight to the fucking doctor, because I've had a couple of things that have just lingered on, and then there's an easy solution, and it's just, you don't... I think even men feel like that. I mean, obviously it's very different, that you feel like you don't want to go, and it's almost like, I should just be putting up with this. This is normal. Like, these are just normal things, and blah, blah, blah. But I think that when you can't function, that's the point at which you need to sort of draw a line for yourself into it.
And I think when you think about it, like, in mental health as well, in that sense, if you're looking at it in terms of things that are stigmatized and taboo, you know, opening up about something like mental health as an issue to a doctor is brutal, and you know, it takes a lot of courage and guts to go and do that. And it's a similar thing, because it's the same thing where it's like, this is invisible, we don't really know, you know, it's not like you've got
very misunderstood as well.
I
think both of them probably will be, especially amongst GPs, where they're, like you're saying, they're like, I just take the pill.
I know.
What the fuck is that going to do for somebody that's got like cysts and like these, like basically a chronic illness?
Yeah, well, that's that's exactly what it is. Chronic pain for sure.
What type of effect did living with like severe pain like that have on your mental health?
Well, it was awful. So at the time when I actually got to the point where I couldn't move, which sounds ludicrous, but genuinely that's what happened.
You're in so much pain, you just
I couldn't.
Can't
and
move.
you know, just going from like my bed to the toilet basically for 3 months, it was just horrible. And hospital appointments, like just being shuttled there, like honestly, like carried like a baby.
And what age is this happening?
22.
Right, so like super young.
Yeah.
Like, for something like this.
Yeah. So I was. I just started my dream course. I was doing a master's in journalism. So I'd got through my undergrad and I was like, with all this going on, not knowing, started my course and had to drop out, obviously, because I couldn't go. And I was turning up to lectures and my friends were like,
you shouldn't be here.
You're like dripping in sweat. Like, what is going on here? And I'm like, I'm fine. Not fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had to drop out of that. And so I felt like my life was like actually over. And I thought, I've done this to myself because I've ignored it for so long. So you do that thing where you're like, well, you deserve it because you should have acknowledged it.
Yeah.
And you just think, okay, I was on the track here. Everything was looking great. And now my fucking period means I can't move. Like, what is this about? This is, it's like ultimate girl problem. But, and I told myself I was being, same thing over and over.
It's mental how quickly that flips between, oh, this is nothing, I don't need to worry about it, I can get on with my life, to that sort of threshold where you need to deal with it, and it instantly flips and becomes, oh my God, I've done this to myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know that either are really massively true, because, you know what I mean, there will be a number of other factors, as you say, like the diagnosis and stuff like that, but it's amazing how, like, similar that kind of experience is to some of the things we've spoken about in the past, where you do kind of almost go for a sense of denial to a sense of like self-flagellation, like at the drop of a hat, the minute you actually decide to sort of deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you shouldn't have to feel like that.
I just remember sitting there and thinking, when I spoke to my lecturer, and I broke down in tears in front of one of them actually, and I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I have to give up on my dream because I am aware that I my health has to come first and all this, and you're saying all this and you're like, I don't want my health to come first, I want to just be able to do everything. And then you realise, you start Googling, you read the books, and you the fertility stuff comes up immediately. And obviously being 22 and confronted with the fact that you might be infertile it was like a bludgeon to the heart, honestly, because I don't think I realised how much I wanted to be this picture of domestic bliss, because I never really have been that way. Like, my family makeup is quite unconventional and I love that, and I think I always knew I wanted to have like a family, but certainly was not on my immediate horizon at all. And then someone says to you, they kind of dangle the opportunity in front of you and say like, this might not be able to happen for you, and I was like devastated, really. And part of my catharsis going through this was to write about it, to speak about it, to do all these things. So I wrote an article, and it was very personal about going through this and having to sign a form that said that they could take away my ovaries and coming to terms with that. And the headline, like, it was the front page of a national paper, and it just said, I'm 22 and I could lose the chance to be a mother. And in my face, like, on the front page. And obviously I put that out there, and I wanted to because I wanted to raise awareness, but I was like, oh, guys, that's like,
it's almost like the experience to exactly a really horrible extent.
They minimised it down to like this sort of like, this is a young woman who can't have kids. Yeah,
which pissed me off, because I was like, obviously I want to have kids, but like, how dare you take my words? I mean, obviously, I got to say, the article was a big success, and I'm really grateful that they published it, but also I was like, see, whatever sub-editor decided that was my headline. I'm so pissed off, because
absolutely,
because it's not the be-all and end-all, and obviously I did my positive research, and like, there's so many different options and different ways that if I wanted to carry a child I probably could, like egg donation, things like that, and my eggs possibly are okay as well, so it's like, it's just write that down.
It's like a statistical thing. This is something that I think that you wouldn't mind us saying, because they were so open about it, but Chris McQueer, if you read some of the stuff that they wrote about, and it made me think about it, because fertility isn't something that I've ever considered, like, ever in my life. Like, am I fertile?
Because most people don't
until it comes a point where you can't have a kid, or you're trying and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then you start to question it.
And then you start to question it.
Yeah.
But there was loads of stuff that came up when I was reading through and was trying to be empathetic towards. So I've never ever been in that space. And then spoke to my girlfriend about it, and she's got polycystic ovaries.
Oh, does she? Right.
And so she was saying stuff to me like, it's a big deal. It's like a huge deal. And I think she got diagnosed in her early 20s as well.
Yeah.
And she was like, you need to, then when you meet somebody, if you meet a partner, you need to sit them down and say, potentially. And I was just thinking to myself, like, well, you can adopt and so many other things that we spoke about, like in that conversation. And she was like, but not everybody's like that. So like, you could potentially meet a guy and go, look, statistically I'm maybe 50-50, I can have kids. The guy might be like, well, I can't see you anymore, like that. All of these things come into it, and that you need to consider. Thinking like, if you get that type of diagnosis in your early 20s and then all of a sudden it's like, this is going to impact you for the rest of your life, your relationships, your work, like things like if somebody in the workplace is having a baby, that's a big deal, and baby showers and all these sort of things that you would need to go to that would potentially
that
impact
should
you.
Sort of spark joy and make you think, oh, wonderful. And it's so hard to, like, it sounds like a really nasty thing to say, but it's so hard to be really happy for people sometimes. No, I'm fine now. But when I was confronted with all this and I've seen all baby announcements and all, and I was like choking up because you just think, and of course.
You live in a world where women are told that, you know, you can have your career and you can go all the way into your, 40s before you need to think about having kids, and there's you know, in your 20s being told it's, there's a reasonable chance it's never going to happen. So I mean, I can get what you're saying, because for me that would feel like, potentially spending the next, 20 years watching mates go and do the one thing that you can't do, and it's like, it's We're also so, but at the same time, you're also so much more than that. I mean, like to minimise it, denote that is a bit harsh, because I think for me, I would be focusing on a young advocate for an issue that people don't know about.
1 in 10.
There's an easier way to spin it. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
And a much more positive
if you feel
way.
like this, go and speak to somebody, go and get checked out.
Which, I mean, with relation to that article as well, like the crux of it, obviously it was my words and it was fine, which is what I was just like, you're right, because I've just, oh gosh, there's so many other things you could, I was just, and actually my boyfriend's mum, I'd been telling her, oh, Katrina, go to the shop and get I'm in the paper today and all this, and I actually thought, oh my god, she's going to pick up that paper. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I was like,
she's going to read the headline as you're not having any grandkids.
And I just thought, oh god, right, this is going to be an interesting Christmas dinner. That was the thought process, and it's ridiculous, obviously, because she loves me and she doesn't care. But just because it was on there like that, it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it's not nice, I suppose.
No,
I think if you're educating people in the process of what's happening with the condition, then there's probably going to be a few bumps in the road as people get to grips with it. You know what I mean? At the same time,
what was I mean, I think I read through, I found an article, I think it was the BBC, maybe for 2 years ago, something like that, and they were saying that they had to induce the menopause. So this was was like a year-long menopause experience that you went through. Was that at 22 as well?
Yeah.
So what was
weird.
why I was thinking, why would that be a solution? I mean, I can understand why the contraceptive pill, because it changes the hormones, it suppresses period as well. If you keep taking it, you can keep taking it and you won't take a period. But why would inducing the menopause be like a potential solution? I just don't.
I know, it's like, so basically,
seems strange.
It was. I mean, I can't explain to you how much this kind of 18-month period was like the most bizarre. I felt like I was like walking on the moon. It was like the most bizarre situation. Like, this was not normal stuff to happen. So basically, in a situation where I've just had an operation, they've kind of tried to cut away as much as they could, and all went pretty well, to be honest. But as I said, they unstuck my bowel, but my fallopian, this is all so gruesome, sorry guys. My fallopian tube was still like huge. I mean, they should not be the same size as your womb. They should not even be detectable really on a scan. They should be like nothing. And obviously the risk with that is, I try not to relate everything to pregnancy, but obviously the risk would be if you did get pregnant, you could have an ectopic pregnancy because your tubes are just gubbed, basically. So that was still a thing. And basically what they thought would help is if I went on this temporary menopause, which didn't just suppress my periods, like suppressed even the murmur of ovulation.
Right.
So nothing would be happening. It would almost just be allowing my body kind of 9 months plus to have no interference from any hormones and just kind of really chill out and hopefully restore. Because the muscle memory in the body and everything is incredible.
Yeah.
So the idea was that if I was menopausal, I would be like the anti-fertile and it would just like calm down. And I did that for it was like a year actually. Injections every 3 months. All the menopause symptoms, like hot flushes, night sweats, like dripping sweats everywhere. But I got my life back. I could get up. I could function. I could restart my course. I could just live. Albeit, you know, with a wee fan in my bag, like having a flush at the same time as my mum, like hilarious. So all quite comical, but you know,
not funny. At the same time.
Yeah, like ridiculous, but weird. And yeah, get a scan at the end of it and check and see if things had improved. And that was the plan.
So the menopause is probably something else that's probably stigmatised.
Yeah.
I don't know any other symptoms other than hot flushes, and that's because it's a physical symptom. And obviously, like I've got my mum, and that was just something she was like, it's the change of life.
Yeah.
Like, you're just sitting there, just sort of sweating.
But it's awful.
What other?
We use so many euphemisms to talk about these things. I think that's part of the
totally.
you know, the change.
Yeah,
the change.
You just went through the change. I can remember,
if that's what you're going to tell me, then I'll just go with that. Then
my sister having like complications as she came into her adolescence, and I was like 8 or 9, and I can remember it was. I would say like, what's wrong with like asking my mum and dad, and it would just be like, it's just women's problems.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Just a way of putting it now. My mum and dad are trying to protect my sisters. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to protect my sister really, and they don't really want to sit down with me and be like, right, once a month this thing happens, and blah 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 at 8, where I'm sitting there going, what the fuck are you talking about? But also, it probably was a good opportunity for them to educate me and like just go like that girls do go through these things that boys don't go through. Boys go through other things, and you've got that to look forward to potentially, like 13, whatever. But your sister's going through this thing, and instead of using like a euphemism and sort of like just don't worry about it.
You're right. There's so many euphemisms. Yeah. Oh my god! Like the painters are in as one. What is there? Like the
That's horrible.
Even just I know.
The worst one I've heard is the blob.
Right.
The blob.
I'm not even going to go there with some of the horrific ones.
Some of the ones that felt.
My brain is literally going, we've got like 10 here, Dad. Like, no, I'm going to leave them with
it. I should have maybe done that as well.
With the menopause symptoms though, like it was surreal, because I think that I always thought like my mum, hilarious. She thought when I was going through my period, and she feels awful about it. She really like, and I don't want her to feel bad about it, so I left it. But she feels awful because she would always just kind of tell me like, I had it bad, you've got it bad. That's just what the Johnston girls get it bad. Like it was just like, okay, fine. And when she was going through her really bad hot flushes, because my mum had me when she was 39, so she's like, we have a good like almost 40 years in between us. So I really vividly remember all of her menopause things, because I was like a teenager, like, and it was just, I was like, Mum, you're so embarrassing. Like I remember that's how I thought she was just being embarrassing, she's being dramatic, she's being this, whatever. I was like, oh, eye roll. And then I had my first hot flush, hilarious, and I felt like tingles from like my head like to my feet, like not like positive, like pins and needles, and I just felt like this like wave of heat, and within like half an hour I had to change all my clothes. Wow. Like it was like, so it's really bad, and I like.
It's not a hot flush. That is not the adequate description to getting so hot that you need to go and change your clothes. That's like
you
a fucking,
are like, it's awful.
Like a hot tsunami.
I was just a heat tsunami.
Yeah.
Tsunami.
Tsunami, exactly. And I phoned my mum and I was like, I'm so sorry. And she went, we're even.
Like pure, I doubted you.
Yeah. I know. And I was just like,
see?
You're just embarrassing me. But no.
So what was it like? So I take it was like hormone replacement or something. Is that how they induced? Like, right. Okay. So what's it like? What's it been like post that? Is it been better? Like
so, yeah. I did all this, and obviously when they tell you this, they say we're going to induce menopause-like state for the next year, and I'm going to do whatever my surgeon says, because obviously I think. Like, obviously he knows better than me and all this. But when someone says to you, like, we're going to press pause on your ovaries and, like, hopefully they'll come back on. It's also another thing where you're like, what? seriously? Give me a break. Stop telling me. Because what if they don't come back on? I'm coming to you to blame you.
Like, this is your fault.
You know, because that all goes through your mind and you just think, you know, what if this reboot it isn't like it doesn't happen? Like that would be awful. So a lot of blind faith.
So hold on, the Electro just like the IT crowd just switched your ovaries off and back on again.
Basically,
that's wild,
isn't it?
I know, very
It is mental. She's actually glitching, so let's just switch it off and on again. That's literally what it was.
Wow.
Which I mean, when you think about it, they do a lot of that for like your heart. They'll do controlled arrest.
All right, okay.
So they literally like kill you and then bring you back to try and sort of regulate your heart. So there's parts of your body where they do
I've
that.
never heard of that.
They like reset. But
I mean,
I grew up with a dad that had heart attacks, and he had that controlled arrest happen like 4 or 5 different times. It's just to try and regulate your heartbeat. So to me, that's experienced that I'm like, right, I get why that they've done that, but
that's terrifying.
That is
terrifying.
I think even just pausing and restarting anything in somebody's body in the early 20s, like you were saying, that the muscle memory is so like strong in your body. One of the things that scares me is when you start to become conscious of like unconscious things in your body that should just happen, and how your brain can start to fuck with them, and you lose control of them. So that would have been a concern. Or like, what happens here? Like, what happens if it doesn't just reboot?
Yeah, like, that was the sole concern. And then actually, I got to be honest, I very quickly forgot about it when I realised that I could like restart my life.
Yeah. Go back to uni and do all the different things.
As soon as I realised that I wasn't going to be in like daily trauma and I could actually get up, and I remember the first time going round the shops with my mum. My mum came through from Aberdeen for the whole time when I was ill, and just like we had a tiny flat, my boyfriend and I, and my mum just like moved in, and when I was I know I was in the hospital for a while. So it was just Neil and my mum, and he was like, it was very surreal. And then obviously he was working nights, and mum was like throwing baguettes into the room for him, like, there you are, hun, there's your lunch. And he's like, thanks, Jane, please leave. Very intense situation, very, very intense and very odd. So I felt for him, but but also my mum's amazing. So when I got out, I remember going round the shops with my mum, which was something we used to do when I was like really wee every Saturday, you know, you'd go around the town. And I was like, Mum, I'm not needing to sit down. Like, I can like walk around, like small wins, but I could walk around Topshop, and I was like, I'm fine. This is amazing. And this is someone who hadn't left the house for 3 months, really. Yeah. So it was
the little victories are absolutely vital when you're on the road to recovery. Like, those are that sort of resumption and normality is like, it sounds weird, but it's almost like empowering when you've been locked up for days or months, or you know what I mean.
We were talking to Aaron Conley about he'd been sectioned for potential suicide attempt, and when he said about he would get outside for the first time in months, and it was the sun shone on him, I got a chill up my spine just thinking like, you need to appreciate these things. Like, if you lose the ability to go to Starbucks and get a coffee, and then you can just go to Starbucks and get a coffee, you should actually be grateful for that, and not just be flippant and be like, oh well, it's just this small thing, just forget about it. You should actually celebrate it.
It is like you've just been given another chance.
Absolutely.
And I'm exactly a really similar situation, because that's how I felt, and it was amazing. And then from that point on, went back in the September, restarted my course, which was amazing. I mean, it was all kinds of weird when you're like, I've done half of this, and people are like, what are you doing here? But got through it. I'm graduating at the end of November.
Congratulations.
Which is good. So that's exciting. And yeah, it's just I immediately forgot about what was happening to me, and obviously there are pros and cons of the medicine that I was on, and it's a bit like, you know, it could have, if I'd been on it any longer, I think there's like lasting, of course there's more symptoms that come from that, like arthritis and things, and I just couldn't even look at it, I couldn't even think about it. I was just thinking, I can get up and I can go. And sometimes you do have to have a blinkered approach to whatever treatment plan you're on, just so that you can just go, hang on a second, I care, but also I need to live. So
you're weighing out, you know, where you are now against where you could be down the line, and where you could be down the line is anywhere, you know what I mean? But if you're better and you're functional at that point, like, it's obviously going to be the thing that just takes over all your thinking into it.
It's got to. And so, strength to strength, really. And then, obviously, my time was up on the injection, and they went in for a wee scan, and again TMI, but shout out to Neil, my boyfriend, because that would be the third internal scan he'd had to be present for, which is obviously brutal. But it was horrible, and because it's always horrible. But they, for the first time, didn't have a horror story for me. They told me that everything was actually looking quite good, and the tubes had gone more or less back to normal and looked like things were a wee bit healthy. Got a referral to infertility, actually, and they did this test where they can't test the quality of your eggs, but they can test the quantity. And healthy wee egg store in one of my ovaries, at least, really, really strong. And yeah, they look for these like follicles, which shows like it's like an indication of fertility, and they'd started to sprout. So this is all weird. I don't really know what it means, but I was like, okay, so that's good. Are you happy? And she was like, yeah, you know, probably would be an IVF situation later down the line just because of your situation, but there's no reason why we can't give it a bash with what you've got. And obviously this was
amazing,
like a game changer, because I was really expecting her to say you've got 2 eggs and they're cracked, but she didn't, so that was good. And I had a scan actually the other day, and more or less the same story. One ovary, he said, is actually looking really healthy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks for telling us your story, because I can't imagine coming in and talking to 2 guys about that. Particularly comfortable, or like,
well, education goes as far as euphemisms.
Like,
you know what I mean?
This was, when I had read the story, I was like, this is something that I want to talk about, not just because it is a really empowering story, but because the stigma that's about it, I feel, is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, if the stigma that goes around sort of like female issues, and like particularly when it's associated with things like periods, and we see things like period poverty popping up. I think that we need to speak about these things, and if this is a platform to do it, then. But thanks for talking about that. Like, do you think that you've got a different outlook, like after you've went through this, in comparison to like an average 22-year-old that might wake up in the morning and be like, fuck uni, oh my fucking god, exams, no, I want to just...
you're actually like enjoying it.
You're actually like, you've got that sort of like, I need to be focused here because it could get taken away at any time. Like, do you think that shaped who you are, like, since then?
I definitely think that it's changed the way I approach almost everything. Obviously you still have days where you're like, oh my god, but I have to check myself, because I think, like, for God's sake, Katy, like, you couldn't like do anything, even just finishing uni and starting working. This feels like a fever dream still, because I'm like, how has this actually happened? How have I got to a point where I'm going to work every day and doing a job that I love, feeling really good, and it all kind of, I'll view it all in a different light now, because I think like not like there was a reason that happened, because I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but it does make you take stock and think, oh my god, you are so lucky that you're even, you know, walking about. And even to have the results like what I got this week from my doctor saying, you know what, this is looking all right. And I think, oh my goodness, like, I just assumed that all that was a goner, and I wasn't going to be able to do anything, you know, and you still get twinges where you're in pain and you think, oh no, it's coming back. It's coming back. But touch wood,
that's no real wood, by the way. That's laminated plastic.
Touch plastic. It's all right so far. So yeah, of course, you look at things differently, and you do have to check yourself and think, you know, you're very lucky to be where you are, and it just makes you have a bit more drive and a bit more kind of focus. And life is too short, and you just think, like, fuck's sake, if this ever happens to me again, I want to make sure that the time that I've got is jam packed with me doing everything that I couldn't do when I was stuck in the house.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's amazing. A good outlook as well. So, you're a presenter at Capital FM.
Yeah.
How's everything going? I mean, we know we've got like James that works at Capital and does drunk therapy, and we're a common sort of friend. But like, how's life as a radio presenter, other than being obsessed with Taylor Swift? Yes, I got it.
Well, the love for Taylor Swift is never going to die, so that's all still there.
Did you ever trust us again after you said you were wouldn't go there?
For goodness sake. You did promise. No, but it's crazy. So actually James has been amazing through the whole thing, because I've been going in there making demos for years.
So making demos was
so just going in, and I did an internship like three years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And then from that point on, James was like, you've got a decent voice, come in and try and make some demos and like just press all the buttons basically and pretend that I was,
Right.
And I did that for every couple of weeks I would come in really. And then eventually got some overnight shifts, 1 till 4 a.m. I still do one of them a week, which is good fun.
Yeah.
But, that way you just like learning the ropes, really.
Previous journey in radio ended. I used to do the interns and volunteering at Clan like 100 years ago. And I got offered I was like 2 to 4 slot, and then I was like, no.
I
so
value
that was the
my
last time
sleep.
I worked in radio, well, up until, I don't know if this counts, but you know what I mean?
I mean, it is a brutal shift. It is, but it gave me a kind of, I don't know, it was brilliant because it meant that I was just getting on air.
They're separating the wheat for the chaff there. That's why you'll be there and I'm not, because I'm like, nah, night shift's the line, sorry.
You're thinking, actually, no, I'd rather be snoozing, but no, it was one of those, and it was just like, amazing. So it did that for a little while, and then now I'm on with Gary on Drive. So but a lot of faith from James, really, and then a lot of, when I was going through all the health stuff, he was just always like come in, like when you can, we'll figure it out or whatever. And he had a lot of belief in me, certainly at points when I didn't have any belief in myself because I was going through all this, and I thought, that's it. Always wanted to do radio, always wanted to be a presenter, a journalist, always wanted to work in that field. And he just kind of kept saying, well, look, when you're feeling good, come in. And even if you record one link and it's just a practice, just keep it up. And then the opportunity came to present with Gary, doing the travel. Nice. So, yeah, it's great.
Loving life.
It's really good, yeah.
It must be something that's really important if you've got somebody, especially like a manager, or if you're at work and they believe, if you're sick, like believing in the person.
Yeah.
Something, because I manage people, and I've had a couple of people phone in the last couple of years where it's been like sort of, I'm having like really bad cramps, and in years gone by, I would have completely believed that they're going through that, but in the back of my mind, I'd be like, is this really a valid reason to be off work? So it must be like really encouraging, especially if you're doubting yourself, to have somebody that's like, don't worry about it, just come in when you can, or whatever like that.
No, totally.
I think that's for people is really, if you do manage people, or to just reflect on that, like absolutely, like just, you need to like just appreciate that people sometimes, if they're going through whatever, like migraines, like that type of thing as well. Like if I get somebody phoning in sick to work and like, I'm going through a migraine, I've had migraines and I can get up and I can, but they're a different person.
Everything's so subjective, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't belittle or dismiss somebody else's experience just because you've not had it. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think it's mental actually though, on that line, how many people who were going through period cramps or endometriosis or PCOS, anything like that, would rather phone their boss and tell them that they had like diarrhea and tell them what they actually had. And that is crazy, because I've done that. I've gone and said, just a sickness bug or whatever, when I know fine well I'm off because of my period. But you're scared that people will be like, oh, come on.
No, just get in. Oh, it can't be that bad.
Like, so-and-so's on her period too. Look, she's grand,
Yeah.
And then you start playing the comparison game and you torture yourself. So you'd rather just say that you were stuck on the loo with diarrhea than say that you had. And it's mad when you're thinking, right, well, I'm less embarrassed about poo.
For the anxiety point of view, I think I said in an earlier episode this year that this was the first time ever in my adult life where when I'd been suffering from anxiety, that I actually said to my gaffer, look, man, I'm not coming in the day because of anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's obviously been part of this process that's kind of led to that. But in the past, I would be like, what is the thing I can say here that will cause him to ask me the least amount of questions possible? And it would be a dodgy stomach or whatever. And you just go and ladle it on and be like, right, that's enough, and move on. But you would not, and it yourself, it only contributes to probably making you actually feel worse that you've not been able to be honest about what's going on.
But that's huge. That's huge though that you were able to do that, because I feel like it's just like coming clean with yourself as well, because it's like, right, this is a legitimate issue that I deserve the time to kind of deal with what's happening to me, and I should be able to be open with that. And it's amazing when you get to that stage where you are just able to just go, fuck it, this is what's happening. I'm doing my best, but I need to take 5 and sort it out.
I think that's a huge point, is that you be honest with yourself and don't just be like, it's just, like you're saying, making excuses, and then you're sort of telling yourself subconsciously that whatever you're going through isn't valid.
Yeah.
That you should, because that's really what the stem of that is that you don't feel, you don't feel like you should be phoning in sick, so you need to make up this excuse. And the sickness and diarrhea one was always the best one when I worked in McDonald's, because if you've got sickness and diarrhea, you can't handle food. 9 times out of 10, it wasn't anxiety or any. I was literally like hungover, and I'd just be like, I've got sickness and diarrhea, I'm not coming in. But
I cannot fry chips today.
That is the one when people phone and they're like, I've got sickness and diarrhea. You're just like, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so like in terms of the endo itself, like as we're talking about, you know, people's individual and sort of subjective experiences with their own health, like what kind of signs should women be looking for? I mean, is there as much as it's hard to scan and it's, you know, pretty invasive to really diagnose, but is there things that people can be, or women can be looking out for?
Totally. There's quite a lot of things, and Endometriosis UK is an amazing resource. So basically, really, this is a little plug, but if anybody does think they have any of these symptoms, they have a helpline, they have all sorts, and what they can help you do is say the right thing that you need to say to your doctor to get the scan. Okay. Because I think that, as we said before, there should be like a troubleshooting list where you think, oh, you've got all these things, right? But they can really help you to, there's a checklist and everything that you can print out and go, I have all of these things to make the doctor take you seriously, which in itself is mad. But the main ones are obviously heavy periods, heavy bleeding, severe pelvic pain or cramps. And obviously it's hard to tell what's severe, but if you have to take a day off for your period, full stop, or if you're bedridden, or if you feel like you're going to pass out when you feel a pain, that's not normal. You shouldn't have to experience that. Painful sex, that's one. So that can be a really embarrassing thing for people to open up about, but most people that have chronic pelvic pain are going to have a lot of pain when they're having sex, and they won't want to admit it, but it is a thing. Also, a lot of pain when you're on the toilet, because it could be things kind of pushing against your bowel. All that stuff. Dizziness on your period, prone to fainting on your period. There's a really extensive list. And also some people, I should say, that have endometriosis have absolutely zero symptoms.
It just lingers about.
Yeah, because just depending on where the growths form and all this sort of stuff. But then they're the ones who possibly, when they're trying to conceive, have issues.
That's when they'll get their diagnosis, which is kind of like, it's strange that it doesn't show up in scans, and you're thinking about like, where's medical science going with this? Because
I know,
when it comes to like things like the prostate, like they're all about that testicular cancer. This is how you check for it. But something like this, you think that people would be like jumping all over it, trying to find a non-invasive way of diagnosing this if it's affecting 1 in 10 women.
10% of the population, and you need to cut them open to find out if it's actually happening. Is just seems wild to me. It doesn't compute at all with me.
I think it's a funding issue, and I think it does. I do think it's a women's health issue in general. I really do. I don't think that
they're taken as seriously.
Yeah.
Which I think is true. It's absolutely true.
And the only time it's taken seriously is when it affects fertility, which is mental, because that's when people start to pay attention, because they're like, oh, this might affect
the family.
Yeah,
seriously.
The
Christian values of society type thing.
It's tribal.
How will this affect
crazy.
men?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Kinda.
I mean, we've got the most advanced medical technology to like combat erectile dysfunction. But like when it comes to
women can't go through her period without being doubled over for 5 days and like sick.
Yeah,
it's literally like take an opioid. Like, just fill yourself full of some
morphine. Yeah, just drug yourself up and you'll be fine. Like, that is literally what the process was.
If somebody was feeling, so if somebody's listening, just before like, we move on to more sort of general things, if somebody was thinking, I'm potentially going through, where do they go and find this information? I know that you just mentioned it there, but I think it'd be good just to plug like different places where people can go and get information on it.
So, Endometriosis UK is the one for the information in Scotland anyway. Like they're really good. 2 full-time members of staff is all that they have, by the way. That's how like little funding and little whatever. But they're incredible. They run conferences down south, but also I think in the next couple of weeks there's a conference in Edinburgh. So they're always doing things, and they have local support groups as well. So you can go along to a support group even if you don't have a diagnosis, if you think you might have the symptoms.
Okay.
And just sometimes hearing other people's experience, you feel like you can breathe again, because you think, oh my gosh, other people understand this, and being in a room with people is quite helpful.
I am known my own animal.
Yeah, so they do that. shamelessly, I have a little Instagram page, Endo Silence Scotland, and we do quite a lot. There's kind of posts on there, and I share people in Scotland's endometriosis stories. Okay. So just like, again, I found that so helpful when I was going through it, because you're just looking at things, checklist, going, yep, she's like me, or that's great, that's wonderful. Like, I actually don't, I don't know, I just feel like I'm not way mad. And also when you see positive stories, that's quite inspiring as well.
Absolutely,
certainly things when people are like, because I keep banging on about it, but for me the main thing was I would have taken the pain every day for the rest of my life. When I found out that I might not be able to have kids, it's so weird. At 22, I was like, right, okay, well, I'm going to have to just go and have a baby now. Like, that's what I'll do. Like, we'll find a way, because that was the thing that was my immediate concern. And seeing women that have had kids through IVF or through egg donation or just got pregnant, for me, that was amazing seeing that on when they were sharing their stories. So you find things and you're like little nuggets of hope, and also little things that validate your experience. It's
absolutely helpful. This is the positive
aspects
of the internet, really, isn't it? Is that
nothing more important than if you're going through something than seeing or reading or experiencing somebody's story who's come out the other side. Like, I think it's one of the most useful things that from my point of view,
community. The thing that keeps is like an overarching theme that we talk about in the podcast is that people they feel a sense of disconnection, and that leads to all sorts of things. But this is the type of thing that social media is so powerful for, because if you are 1 in 10 women are suffering for this and suffering in silence, but before the days of the internet, you would have just put up with it every day for your life.
Of course, you wouldn't have a clue.
You go and you see these people's stories and they're like, go and get checked out. This is the power of it. But
absolutely,
I mean, there's so many.
How many of that 1 in 10 don't even know that they've got they've got?
Or is it potentially 2 in 10? Like, is it? Like,
probably.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is that potential? But yeah, I mean, I think it's important just to let people know where to go. The thing that I think that it connected first of all was that I'd filled in like some sort of, I don't know, thing for your university about podcasting. And I think it was about like podcasts being a threat to sort of mainstream media. Yeah. What's your opinion on that? Do you think that because since then, it's like socialism, but like podcast is like the socialist front. I don't think so, but the one thing that I've noticed since then is that the mainstream media is now sort of infiltrating podcasting and creating their own podcasting platforms. That, I mean, if you go and look at the top 10, I mean, other than the guys like, and we talk about them a lot, but guys like Rogan, who's probably got the biggest platform on the planet as far as like getting a message out there. Where, like, I mean, the Edward Snowden episode earlier in the week had like 5 million views overnight, and you're just like, holy shit. I mean, even though, did you watch it?
Oh, I've not seen it.
No, it doesn't really get into it. They just get caught up in his story,
right?
And you're like, there's an Oliver Stone movie that tells us all this. Like, I want to hear what you think about Trump. I want to hear what you think about the world today. I don't want to hear about
something.
Is he not exiled?
He's
to
in
America.
Russia. He's in Russia.
Or Rogan went to Russia?
No, they Skyped him in.
Oh, right, okay.
Because he was like rector of Glasgow Uni, like when I was there.
Yeah. Who, Edward Snowden? It's ridiculous.
Rogue tactic.
Yeah, I think that the reason that they wanted him on was because of the whole sort of like Trump had come out and went, whistleblowers will just get an immunity under Trump, and then Julian Assange is now getting tortured in a British jail, and
you wanted someone to quiz him on that rather than
rather than
rehashing
just his story that is incredible, but I unfortunately I'd heard it. But anyway, like, do you think that there is potential that podcasting and like this sort of like what is essentially used to be night radio, talk radio, is going to like wipe away the sort of question time style? Because you see, even though people complain about it, they still go and watch it and still love the sound bites. And instead of getting Bernie Sanders on for an hour and actually saying to him, what do you believe in, what are you going to do if you get into power, they still focus on like this sort of like campaign bite and putting it out there. So I used to think podcasting's going to wipe the floor. But I'm starting to think it's just going to get bastardized, and we're going to get 15-minute podcasts.
Corporatized.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, because I think everybody wants a slice of the pie, don't they? I think that's basically what's happened, and people are under pressure to kind of keep mainstream media alive, and they're wanting to kind of offshoot that in whatever way that they can. But I don't think podcasts are a threat to the kind of status quo, and obviously thankfully for my job and stuff, commercial radio is grand because we're playing music and we're doing different stuff. But when you talk about the talk shows and things, that's really interesting because I don't know, I feel like when you're tuning into a podcast, you're tuning in for like, it's a micro audience tuning in for a very specific reason most of the time, or because you want to hear someone who sounds like you talking about issues, bigger, wider scale issues, or just because you're really interested in a certain topic or a certain whatever. So I think that they'll always have the advantage there in terms of niche markets. I don't know, because I still love listening to and watching, you know, these kind of car crash panel shows where you're like, what's going to happen here?
I'm bad for it myself, so no judgment in that. I don't watch Question Time, but I look at the wee videos on YouTube.
Oh,
and get raging.
I know. And it's always like, you know...
So is it just a rage factory and you're just like, just
someone in the audience,
you know what I mean?
like, hitting the nail on the head and you're like sweating watching them try and answer.
Yeah.
But, no, I posed the question for uni for various reasons, but I think that my findings and what I worked out in the end was that they're pretty separate. And I think that I certainly, when I'm listening to a podcast, go for a whole different reason. I do go for, because I care about the people that are doing the podcast as well. But you know that way where you get invested in people's
like
story
them.
and because you just become your pal, and you would never turn on Question Time because you think, oh, your pal is going to be on it. Like, well, unless
you're looking for something else.
You're looking for. You're getting the information that I get from a podcast. I do always feel educated from them, but it is just because I'm just checking in and I really like the person, or I'm really interested in the subject matter. I feel like it's a different ballgame. But it was interesting to see how many people thought that there was, you know, that they were a threat.
They were a threat to it.
Because I suppose now podcasts are just getting so really popular, which is great because I love them.
Huge.
But it's mental. Yeah.
The variety's insane. So
it's almost getting to the point where it's like music, where there's so much that you can't really pick anything. You're like, just there's so much choice to go and listen to this. And I mean, if you wanted to go and listen to a podcast on the Thunderbirds, I'm pretty sure you could find probably 100 hours worth of podcast content on the Thunderbirds or on like whatever like children's TV program. I think it's further down the line in the States, and I think it's more serious in the States. I think that you get, I mean, not to harp back to him constantly, but I think the platform that Joe Rogan gives to people is incredible, even though sometimes he gives it to people where I'm like, should he really be going on there? But the fact that Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, these people are serious political candidates for the presidency, are going on and speak. Well, Sanders is definitely a serious candidate.
Like pulling at 2%.
Yeah, but these going on and speaking for over an hour takes a lot of courage.
No, totally.
Do you think that's because, I don't want to say like more, they're given more legitimacy over in the States, or what do you think that is? Like, what do you think the appeal is? Do they just realise that there's more, they see the power of that niche kind of audience, or it's not even a niche when you think about his numbers.
America's so big that all the individual sort of smaller areas allow for that sort of nicheness where they can have a local podcast like ours, where, as you say, we're going out to maybe a couple of hundred, maybe a few thousand on a good week, but like a local podcast in Arizona or, you know, Nevada or whatever it is, instantly has access to maybe 100,000 people. You know what I mean? Like, so a local podcast
for voters,
in their terms, even though they're still probably talking quite niche things. You know what I mean? In that area, you know what I mean?
I heard Rogan on an interview say that he gets 9 million downloads a week, and that's only on Apple.
Oh my gosh.
So then his YouTube's like over 1 million in a week. So he's going out to like tens of millions of people, and I think that he's very unique because he's been going for years and he was like one of the first. So and the difference between America and here, I think, is exactly what Matt's saying. I think is just that there's just, sorry, what you were saying, it's more legitimate. It's been legitimised, whereas here we've got the BBC's podcasts and we've got
the sounds.
So you get like that.
Oh shit! I did facial Tourette's again. I keep forgetting that we record these videos. Like
I just clocked you.
She did that. She just caught me having facial Tourette's when she mentioned BBC's for Joe and Bite Size.
We've I think that it took us so long to get on the bandwagon that the horse is bolted, and now it's hard for us to get like a Joe Rogan type podcast that's actually going to like lead the way, where it's just a guy's podcast, because that's all it is. It's just him and another guy in a room. Whereas now I think that the main podcasts in the UK are the big ones that are like sort of like BBC run, and like I think the number one sports podcast, Peter Crouch, which is BBC 5 Live. The number one politics podcast is a BBC podcast
which
again.
Is like
the only one that I think is really sort of like getting in there is Russell Brand, but that's more around sort of spirituality than it is about like actual getting a politician on there and asking them, like drilling them down. It's more.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, she's still with
there's
the BBC.
celebrity element.
But that's
also.
celebrity. So
Yeah.
they're mainstream. But then I suppose people could argue Joe Rogan was on the UFC and on Fear Factor, so he was a celebrity before he was a podcaster. So it's just because we look at him now as a podcaster, and Bill Burr, another celebrity that's got a huge. So I think I would agree with what you're saying, that I don't see it as being a major threat.
No,
I think
I don't think so.
It's maybe a symptom of the society we live in as well at the minute, because as we go down the road of Trump and Johnston and so on and so forth, like where liberties become less and less, and I think people feel, you know, disenfranchised and that they don't have a voice. And I think if they can plug a microphone into their laptop and set up their iPhone and, you know, talk about whatever it is that they're doing, then they're going to do it. You know what I mean? I think it gives people who maybe in some instances don't feel like they've got a voice the opportunity to come out and speak for themselves as well, you know what I mean?
How do you feel about the whole, what word will I use for this, stramash, about comfort, gender neutralising their sanitary products? So, like, this is what a question. Like,
oh my goodness me!
This is for selfish. This is for selfish reasons, because I have went in and I have looked at both sides of the sort of like perspective on this. I don't have a perspective because one, I'm trying not to have a perspective because one, I don't use sanitary products. Like I don't get periods, but there's been and I think that this gets used as like a Trojan horse, where in the times of, I mean, the last week has been a political shit show, and I think that these things get used as like a distraction method, because I don't understand why a woman would feel passionately about the female symbol getting taken off something that I feel personally should be free. I mean, one, comfort don't give a fuck about you. I mean, who they owned by, Johnston & Johnson. I think they really care about gender neutrality. They're basically trying to sell something.
Yeah.
So, but there's also, I can also see why it would be a point of contention for a woman. Like, I can also sort of feel that, where they're like, there's so many other like bigger issues. Why is this a bit like a big thing? I think it gets misunderstood a lot as well, that people were saying, well, trans women don't use sanitary products, and you're like, but trans men do. So that, I think that's in non-binary. That's why they've tried to make it gender neutral. But just feel like a woman's perspective, do you feel like it's a big deal? Do you care?
I feel like it's a small tick in a box, and I think you're so right when you say the Trojan horse thing, because I do think it is just like, this is a little, you know, it's a distraction from the fact that they're actually not doing anything to combat period poverty, to address the fact that people can't afford to buy their products, especially when they have something. I mean, it was my mum that reminded me the other day, actually, that when I was in a really bad state, I was spending £30 a week on sanitary items.
Wow.
Like, genuinely, for not all the time, but there's a couple of weeks out the month, that was my reality, because I was going through that many kind of, you know, and on painkillers and on heat packs and on all this nonsense. So looking into that situation and thinking, if I had been in a worse situation, if my mum hadn't basically subbed me the money, essentially, or anybody that's in that situation where they're going through that many, you know, this is a drop in the ocean. It doesn't mean anything, because if they can't even afford to get the product, what do they matter if it's pink or blue packaging, really? But then also, by the same token, some of my pals that are non-binary and are experiencing this stuff are kind of confronted by this packaging, and it does upset them. Of course it does. So I do think, and I think about my pals, and I think, all right, well, that's good. But I still think, but you're missing the point. Because sure, not everything needs to be pink and frilly for it to be, I don't go in a shop and think I only see pink because I'm a woman. Like, it's nonsense. It really is. So but if it makes someone feel better, that's great. And I really am for that, of course. But it is just not addressing the issue, which is that they should be free, and all the
Yeah,
stuff that Monica
absolutely.
Lennon is doing and trying to get free sanitary products everywhere, tackling period poverty and everything. Invest some money in that.
Yep.
Why don't you? Instead of taking a wee feminine symbol off it, because do both.
Yeah,
Basically,
is what
I want them to do.
That was the kind of conclusion that I was sort of thinking about, is that they're only related. That you can get into an argument about period poverty, but it's almost sort of like whataboutery when let's just say to people, like, stop focusing on that fucking issue, like, because it isn't an issue. It makes people, it's more inclusive, it's great, but at the end of the day, what is the goal? The goal is to sell more of these things.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
Comfort are dropping these things knowing that people are going to spend 2 days on Twitter talking about comfort. The same way as any other subject, you know, like any other product. I mean, the one I seen the other day, and I'm in no way, shape or form comparing the two, was the innocent smoothies. Well, they were joking
The blue thing.
No, the blue thing. Apparently, the blue thing's legit. They were making a joke about conkers. So at this time of year, you know, the trees are falling, blah blah blah. We are, you know, so delighted to announce this conker milk smoothie, and like people went absolutely tonto for 2 days, and they've spent the rest of the week repeatedly posting "Do not eat conkers." Because they made a joke about like conker milk, like soya milk or like almond milk or whatever it is, and cunts have been going out and eating conkers. Now they've obviously made the conker milk joke, assuming that people are going to get the joke and, like, you know, have 2-3 days worth of chat. But in actual fact, they're now drowning in idiots who are trying to eat conkers.
Conker
you know
poisoning.
what I mean? Conker poisoning. But as I'm saying, these companies are very measured. We talked about it in one of the shots about outrage culture, where, you know, like Katy Perry releases a pair of shoes that look like it's blackface, and you're like, come on, it's the 21st century. She knew what she was doing with that, and she got the reaction that she wanted because people spent a week talking about it. And it's, I think with the comfort side of things is like they're just dropping grenades into conversations and stepping back so that everybody else does the advertising for them.
It'd be good if people could just take that step back and just be like, let's
Don't
just
bite here.
don't engage,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
don't engage. But
No.
unfortunately, I think that when you've got people like Hopkins and Pierce Morgan, and they love this shit. Do you know what I mean? And it's also about their intent as well. Like, their intent is just to push their profile.
And it fulfills their whole villain persona that they
Yeah.
live for.
Simon
So,
Cowell,
of course,
Simon Fuller, whoever the first villain in fucking the Pop Idol, I've got a lot to fucking answer for, because now it's like a legitimate, like,
Your choice. Like,
I
I want to be a
be
Disney villain.
exactly. I'm going to be Maleficent today, and I will do it well. Yeah, but
Mr. Nasty. Or whatever.
totally.
It just seems like a crazy situation, but as I said, it's been something that I've been just looking at it from afar and just thinking, what the fuck is going on here, and why do people care so much? And I think it was good to get like a sort of a perspective on it that sort of makes me feel better about, I'm not an arsehole for thinking do both.
Aye.
No, totally.
It's all right to be sitting in a situation, listen, go, I don't really care about either side of this argument, I'm just going to leave. Well, that's my point of view.
Aye, nobody gives a fuck about what I think anyway. That's us over the hour, so thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Been a great conversation.
Really
I think
appreciate you sharing the story.
Aye, definitely. I think that I hope people, like, I mean, I think people have already took a lot for the article, but even if like one person sort of listens to this and goes, oh, that might be me, and goes and seeks out. But I think the purpose is not just to sit down and talk to somebody, but to like destigmatize these things, because I mean, that's the whole thing about saying it must be awkward talking to guys about this type of thing. I don't think it should be.
No.
I think you should be able to just be open and honest about illness and like what your experiences. I can understand, like, I wouldn't want to sit down and talk to.
I mean, I've got a wife and a daughter, so these things, I need to educate myself and get beyond these older thinking, you know, where it's like the euphemisms and, you know, the sort of, you know, people being segregated in terms of the knowledge that's shared with them and stuff like that. Like, I want to be able to support, you know, a wife and a partner or a daughter through these type of things, and the knowledge that we've got based on how we were taught is not enough.
It's nothing.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's like zero.
It's shit. And what I think would be really cool is if someone listened to this and started a conversation about menstrual well-being, about periods, about, you know, these issues that they would never have thought of speaking about before, and did it with confidence and knowing that they had a little bit more knowledge and that they actually empathised and understood a wee bit more. That would be awesome. So.
excellent.
Okay. So,
Well, again, thanks very much for coming on. Really enjoyed the chat.
Oh, thank you.